on disaster management. I hope that I am audible to all of you. Am I right? I am audible to all of you, no?
Yes, sir.
Somebody can just put a message saying yes. Okay, yes. Right. So our next topic is, what is a risk? Risk. That statement is shown there. The probability that negative consequences may arise when hazards interact with vulnerable areas, people, property, and environment. So, what does it mean? In Malayalam, what do you say for risk? Somebody can tell me. What do you say risk in Malayalam? It is the probability of negative consequences. Means what? Can you give what is the meaning of risk in Malayalam? Srilashmi, can you tell me what is the meaning of risk in Malayalam?
Abagada sadhyada.
Abagada Sathida, exactly correct. You have given the right word. Abagada Sathida. Then what is accident? The other Srilashmi can say. Srilashmi, yes, can tell me what is accident? Srilashmi, yes, can you hear me?
Abagadam.
Apagadam. So you see the difference between accident and risk. Accident is the real thing. Apagadam. Risk is only a probability. What the difference? Say for example, when you go in a car, you have got risk. Anytime the car can get accident. That's a risk. But when the car meets with a danger, that is an accident. That's the difference. See the next slide. What do you understand by risk analysis? Risk analysis will help us to understand the potential impact of various hazardous events. Means, if a hazard will happen, what are the possibilities? Or what are the ways in which it is going to affect us? Say you are, every car manufacturer makes a risk analysis of the vehicle. When you travel by a vehicle, there is a risk possibility. So that risk analysis they'll put, and that is why nowadays cars are coming with 2 balloons, 4 balloons, 6 balloons, 8 balloons, like that. Some of the international cars like Benz and BMW, they go up to 8 balloons. So when an accident takes place, you will be covered from all the sides by balloons. That means your risk is very less. Risk possibility, that is why the government advises the motorcyclists to wear the helmet. Even if you are thrown away from the vehicle, the risk is less. That is based on risk analysis. And risk analysis also involves the development of risk scenarios based upon the information about hazards and their frequency and intensity. You would have seen sometimes on the roadside, there will be some signboard saying that accident prone area. How do you keep such a board or signboard on the road? Many places you can see accident prone area, especially if it's a hilly road, you are bound to see such signboards on the road, accident prone area. How do we keep that board there? Why? And based on what we keep that board there? Shibi, can you tell me why we keep that board? How we keep that board? Based on what? Shibi. Shibi?
Sir.
Can you hear me? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Based on what we put that board there? റോഡിൽ പോകുമ്പോൾ കാണാറില്ലേ, റോഡിൽ ചിലപ്പോൾ അപകട സാധ്യത കൂടിയ മേഖല അങ്ങനെ ബോർഡ് വെച്ചിട്ടുണ്ടാവും. എന്ത് അടിസ്ഥാനത്തിൽ അങ്ങനെ ഒരു ബോർഡ് വെക്കുന്നത്? On what basis you keep that board? Okay. ഷിബി അങ്ങനെയുള്ള ബോർഡ് കണ്ടിട്ടുണ്ടോ?
Yes, sir.
ബോർഡ് കണ്ടിട്ടുണ്ട്. Megha is going to tell something. Megha, you can tell me on what basis that body is kept.
ഗ്രേറ്റർ നമ്പർ ആവറേജിനേക്കാളും കൂടുതൽ നമ്പർ ആക്സിഡൻസ് ഉണ്ടായിട്ടുണ്ടാവും.
Yes,
അല്ലെങ്കിൽ
you are right. You are right.
ആയിരിക്കും.
You are right. You are totally right. We will assess how many accidents have taken place in that location. And if it is more than the average possibility, then we will say it is an accident prone area. That is why some locations where regularly accidents to happen, we prevent overtaking in that area. And then risk analysis also help us in identifying what kind of, that PPT has gone away. Nandita, the PPT has gone away. So the risk analysis will also help us in identifying what kind of impact a hazard will have on various at-risk elements such as people, houses, buildings, roads, animals, plants, etc. So we can have a rough idea based on the risk analysis. There are so many methods for risk analysis. Stochastic methods and probabilistic methods are also available. You don't have to study that much in depth. You just have to know what is a risk analysis meant for. So risk analysis also will help us in identifying what will be the impact. Say, for example, in many of the forest areas, we make a risk analysis of wildfire. If a wildfire happens in that area, how it is to be handled and what will be the dangers associated with the community, with the people, with the flora and fauna, etc., etc. Okay. Nandita, you can try to bring back the PPT. Anyway, I'll continue my class even if the PPT is not available. Then what is the meaning of exposure to a risk? Exposure to a risk means when, say, for example, you are working in a nuclear power plant. I told you many of you will have to work in nuclear power plants. Many of my friends who have done a basic engineering degree, they are working in nuclear power plants. When you are in a nuclear power plant, you will be given an instrument which you will put in your shoulder like the ID card. That is what is called the Geiger counter, or in detail, it is called the Geiger-Müller counter. The Geiger-Müller counter is nothing but an instrument you tie on your body so that whenever the number of radiations incident on your body is exceeding a particular limit called tolerance limit, it will make a beeping sound. So you can just escape from there. See the next slide. So there is what is called an occupational exposure limit, OEL. Like I have told now, you will be given a Geiger-Müller counter which will be attached to your body. When the limit is exceeded, number of radiations that your body can withstand in a particular period is exceeded, that counter will make a beeping sound. Similar to that, you can have exposure limit for everything. Exposure limit, take for example, you are exposed to heavy industrial sounds. If you are continuously exposed to industrial sound, your hearing capacity, your audibility will be affected and you may become deaf after a period of time. So to prevent that, those who are continuously exposed to industrial sounds will be asked to take leave. See, one more case I'm saying, those who are working in sea, in the sea platforms, oil rigs are there in the sea. Especially if you are working in a company like ONGC, after 2 weeks, you'll be given 2 weeks leave. You'll be asked by them to go back, go home and take rest for 2 weeks, because the conditions in the sea will exceed your exposure tolerance limit, and you will become, ill. To prevent that, you will be permitted to go home, and even the people working on ships, merchant navy, transport ships, cargo ships, etc., they also will be given long leave to stay back at home, because otherwise they will develop what is called seasickness. Seasickness means by continuously staying in the sea for months and weeks, you will develop some intolerance to the sea. That's called seasickness. So that limit up to which you can be exposed is called the occupational exposure limit. See the next slide. So occupational exposure limit is the concentration in the air to which you can be submitted if it is a chemical industry or noise making industry. Many gases, if you are working in a chemical industry, many gases have got what is called a threshold limit. Threshold limit means Tangavunna Paridhi. Threshold limit means that capacity up to which you can withstand. Can anyone tell me the threshold limit of any particular chemical? ഏതെങ്കിലും ഒരു കെമിക്കലിന്റെ ത്രെഷോൾഡ് ലിമിറ്റ് ആർക്കെങ്കിലും ഒന്ന് പറയാമോ? I just want to see whether you are aware of it. Anybody can tell me threshold limit of any chemical or any matter in the atmosphere? Anybody? Any of your relatives working in some chemical industry or nuclear industry or even sound polluting industry, you will be able to tell it. The association which is concerned about these things at the international level is what is called OSHA, OSHA, Occupational Safety and Health Association, which is US based. They have got limits for everything, for every chemical, for every air content, for every noise level. They have got what is called an exposure limit. So if you refer the OSHA handbook, OSHA, another agency is American Organization for Industrial Hygiene. ACGH is the organization, and they also have certain limits exposed. In India, these are controlled by the Bureau of Indian Standards, BIS restrictions. Bureau of Indian Standards have got limit for everything which you can be exposed to. What is the human exposure limit that is permitted? In most of the contents to be present in water and air, even my book, I have written a book on environmental engineering, which is available in the market. Even that book gives the limit of contents in water and air, which we can withstand. I'm not going to list it because so many things are there. Up to what level? Say, for example, the carbon dioxide in the air is, how much is the carbon dioxide in the air? Anybody knows how much is the carbon dioxide content in the air? Anyone knows? Aditya, can you tell me how much carbon dioxide is present in the air?
Sir.
Aditya, how much carbon dioxide is present in the air?
0.3%. I don't know.
0.33 gram per meter cube. Yes, you are right. Or 330 parts per million. 330 parts per million or 0.33 gram per meter cube. That is the content of carbon dioxide in air. What will happen if the carbon dioxide level goes up? There are two carbon products in the air, carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide. Can anybody tell me what is the action of carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide on the human beings? Akshaya S, can you tell me what is the effect of carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide on the human being? It is coming in our next chapter, but I am asking in advance. Can you tell me what are the impacts of carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide on human beings? Anyone? Akshaya, can you hear me? Akshaya is not available. Akshaya is there. Carbon monoxide is poisonous. You are right. Carbon monoxide is poisonous. You are exactly right. 1 point. Then Amrita, not Amrita, Amita, can you tell me what is the danger with carbon dioxide? Actually, I told that carbon monoxide is poisonous. Carbon monoxide can kill even human beings if it is present in high quantity in the air. What about carbon dioxide? What is the impact of carbon dioxide? Can you tell me? Amita, can you hear me? Amita is not present? Yes, Amita is present. You don't know what is the impact of carbon dioxide in the air on human beings? Let us ask Anandu. Anandu, can you tell me what is the impact of carbon dioxide in the air on human beings? The carbon dioxide is excess, what will happen? Anandu is present? Yes. Breathing problems? Yes, yes. Anandu is right. You are all very knowledgeable people. I appreciate you. And Shibi has written, what Shibi has written? I'll read what Shibi has written. Some comment. Shibi has written difficulty in breathing. Yes, that is true. And Kirtana has written dizziness. All are true. These two gases of carbon, carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide, are very dangerous. First, let us see what is carbon monoxide. Carbon monoxide, in our lungs, there is an area what is called pleurisy. Pleurisy means it's a layer which separates the open space of the lungs and the interior of the lung. So pleurisy is a thin membrane, and this pleurisy is having, this is called pleura actually, not pleurisy. The disease of pleura is called pleurisy. This pleura is having very fine blood vessels. These blood vessels absorb carbon monoxide from the air because blood is present. And the danger is they absorb oxygen as well as carbon monoxide. Many other gases also, even gases like fluorine, they absorb. The danger is if carbon monoxide is present in the water, the blood loves carbon monoxide more than oxygen. It's around 20 times more. That means if oxygen and carbon monoxide are present in the air inside the lungs, the blood vessels will accept only carbon monoxide because they love carbon monoxide 20 times more than the oxygen. So the oxygen affinity of carbon monoxide or carbon monoxide affinity of the blood is 20 times more than the oxygen affinity of blood. So what will happen ultimately? Carbon monoxide will be taken immediately by the blood. And when the blood takes carbon monoxide, there is a content in the blood which is called hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is that content which absorbs the oxygen. When hemoglobin absorbs oxygen, that will be handed over to the blood cells. But when hemoglobin absorbs carbon monoxide, that immediately becomes another compound called carboxyhemoglobin. The danger with this carboxyhemoglobin is, first thing, it is poisonous. Second thing is, it prevents the absorption of oxygen. Because of this reason, if you are breathing more and more carbon monoxide, oxygen absorption in your blood will reduce, first thing. When the oxygen absorption in your blood reduces, you become somewhat dizzy. That means you become dull. And if it exceeds a particular limit, all the hemoglobin in your blood is filled with the carbon monoxide and it becomes carboxyhemoglobin, your breathing will be in trouble and ultimately you can even die. For example, I tell you one case. You are having a closed garage to keep your car. It has happened once. It happened once means once a man was, he forgot to switch off his car. His car was open and his child was inside, but by mistake, he closed the shutter of that garage. After 10 minutes when he returned, he found that the child was dead. What does it mean? That child couldn't withstand the carboxyhemoglobin for 10 minutes. Maybe some 3-4 minutes you will be able to withstand. This is the danger. So carbon monoxide can kill you provided you are overexposed to it. So there is an exposure limit or a threshold limit to carbon monoxide. I think you understood that. Now, what is the difficulty with carbon dioxide is it cannot kill you. Carbon dioxide is not interacting with blood. It will not be absorbed by blood. What happens is carbon dioxide will be rejected by the blood. So if you are staying in a place where carbon dioxide is heavy, your body will reject carbon dioxide and your breathing will become slow and slow. And if it is fully carbon dioxide, your breathing will stop because the blood cannot accept carbon dioxide. Blood rejects. Blood hates. Carbon dioxide, the blood knows it's a villain. It won't accept. Whereas carbon monoxide, the blood cannot identify. But carbon dioxide, the blood identifies and blood will immediately stop breathing it. And that condition is what is called asphyxia. 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 PHYXIA. What is asphyxia? Can anybody tell? Kirtana, can you tell me, so what is asphyxia? Kirtana has already given the answer, listeners. So Kirtana, can you tell me what is asphyxia? ASPHYXIA. Kirtana, can you hear me? Don't know, sir. Very plain answer. Anyone else? Instead of Kirtana, can Google tell me? Google, you are here. Abnormal. Chelsea has written abnormal breathing. Google has written don't know. Then Ashok has said decrease in concentration of oxygen in body. Then Revati says deficient supply of oxygen. GC says deficient supply of oxygen to the body. Asphyxia is none of this. Asphyxia means breathlessness. Shwasam muttal. Vimishtam. You cannot breathe. So if you are completely in carbon dioxide, your lungs will stop breathing. That is called asphyxia. I think now you understood. Asphyxia means breathlessness. That is shwasam muttuga. And that also can kill you. If 7 minutes you are put into that condition, 7 to 10 minutes, you will again die because you cannot breathe. But the point is, within that time, you can escape to somewhere else where carbon dioxide is not there. And of course, some people are very sensitive to carbon dioxide. I am such a person. If some smoke is somewhere near my house, I immediately detect it because my lungs is very sensitive to carbon dioxide. Many people are like that. I had a discussion with this on medical hands. They said many people, their lungs will feel upset if at all carbon dioxide is present in nearby areas. You also, anybody in this group who can sense carbon dioxide from a distance? If somebody is smoking somewhere, you can detect from a faraway place. I've got that peculiar capacity. I can sense it without seeing it. Many times I'll tell my household people, my wife or children, that somebody is smoking somewhere, please check. They'll immediately locate and come and tell me. And I'll ask them to stop the smoking. So anybody got this capacity? Smoking means some burning of. Smoking doesn't mean cigarette smoking. Smoking means cigarette smoking. It is difficult to identify. Whereas smoking by burning some leaves, some garbage, etc. That smoking only I mentioned because smoke will come in heavy capacity. Anybody? Yes. Sonia is having the same problem. Very good. Anyone else? You can sense smoke from far away distance. These are our body temperaments. Our body has got some built-in system. Many people will be having it. I have got one more thing. If I am drinking polluted water, that means infected water, soon my throat will be itching. Within minutes, my throat will have an irritation. So I can sense that it is, so immediately I'll stop drinking that water. I don't know whether many of you have got. That is why I drink only either purified water or boiled and cooled water. Many of you will be having this quality. It's a peculiar nature of our throat skin. Esophagus has got a peculiar sensory power. Very few people have got it, but I have got it. Luckily, so many times I can avoid drinking polluted water. In a single sip, my throat will tell me that it is polluted. Let me see who else is having that quality. I'm checking your innate qualities. Anybody else having that quality? Sipping polluted water, your throat will inform that it is polluted. Some itching sensation on the throat. Anyone? Like what Sonia told for the previous case. Let me see any of you are having. No? Maybe you understand it late, but many may be having. So such peculiar, senses, many of us are having. Only thing is we don't develop it. Like one simple thing I am saying, electric shock. Electric shock, some people get only very small shock. Suppose you are touching 230 volt line, only around 30-40% of people get real shock. Because in my young days, I used to get shock very many times. I was not careful. Then I was not having much impact. Only a small, what you can say, a small sensation on the skin and no other danger. So I was wondering what has happened to me. So I had a discussion with the medical people. They were saying that this electric shock depends on the nature of the blood of a person. The blood alkalinity is one factor which decides how deep you can get a shock. Then I found that I'm not that susceptible to electric shock. But later I found that gradually when I got aged, I'm more sensitive to electric shock. Then I again had a discussion because by aging, your blood content will change. Anybody in this group who has got an electric shock but escaped without unhurt because your blood is not supporting shock that much? I had many such occasions. It is based on your body nature, not based on your health or something. It's based on your blood content and your body nature. Anybody who has escaped from electric shock like that? No one is there. It is a threshold limit of your body. That's why I'm just asking it. Anyone? Maybe you may not have touched the electric lines so far. Am I right? In my young days, I used to do electrical wiring and repairing in my household things. Maybe that time only I used to get this shock. But once it happened, my daughter, long back when she was a small kid, she touched a live wire while unplugging. She was only 3 or 4 years old, and I was afraid that she will be in danger. Then I immediately went and asked her what happened. She said that there was only a shivering sensation on her finger. That means my same blood has been in her. She was not affected by that shock. Luckily, if it was otherwise, should have been immediately caught by it. Was 230-volt shock. Okay, so many of you will have this quality. Forget about it. But when you come across such situations, you will understand. Even the poisons of insects, it depends on your blood. A wasp or a honeybee biting you, and if you are allergic to that, immediately you may even faint. So all this, our body nature is very important in natural hazards and natural risk. But in wider hazards like in a flood or like in a wildfire or in a even wildfire will lead to what is called the asphyxia if you go to a place with wildfire. So it is better if you can understand you are having a problem with these risks or these dangers, keep away from them. Keep away from them. Many times you can keep away just by, say for example, I told if I drink polluted water, my senses immediately say that it is polluted. So I'll always keep away from that. Or if after taking a sip, I'll keep it away. Even if I'm thirsty, I'll keep it away. Like that, you have got a capacity by which you can keep away many risks and many exposure limits. So see the next slide. I think this is the last slide in this group. We'll go to see the next one. I think this is the last, and we'll go to the next group then. Yes, next group. Next group means next part in the module. That's all. So in this part, we have been discussing about disaster management. We have been discussing about crisis. We have been discussing about risk. And then what else we have been discussing? We have been discussing about the methods of crisis management, the types of crisis, disasters, etc. Now let us come to the third part in the chapter. We are having 4 parts in this chapter. In first module, we are having 4 parts basically. We are coming to the third one, which is crisis and emergencies. See the next slide. See the definition of a crisis. You read that, and I will be asking some questions based on that. You read that slide. I think even in mobile you can read that slide because I have written very small number of lines only. Can you tell me a crisis? Jaydev V. Jaydev, can you hear me? After reading this, can you tell me an example of a crisis? Crisis is singular, crisis is plural. Means instead of SIS, if you write SCS, it is plural. So crisis is singular. Jaydev, can you give an example of a crisis? Jaydev, kekamo? Yes, you are hearing me. Can you tell me an example of a crisis? You have been here for nearly 2 decades. And tell me an example of a crisis which you have heard or seen or understood. Any example? Tsunami. Yes, yes, you are right. Tsunami. Tsunami was a crisis. What is tsunami? Jaydev, can you tell me what is a tsunami? I don't know whether you are present in the class when I explain tsunami. Just tell me what is a tsunami.
Sir, earthquake under seashore, under sea.
Actually, tsunami, the cause of tsunami is what he told. ഒരു സുനാമിയുടെ റീസൺ ആണ് ജയദേവ് പറഞ്ഞത്. സുനാമി എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ അതല്ല, അതിന്റെ ഇഫക്റ്റ് ആണ് സുനാമി. റീസൺ ഈസ് വാട്ട് ഹി ടോൾഡ്. സുനാമി ഉണ്ടാകുന്നത് അങ്ങനെയാണ്. സുനാമി മീൻസ് ഹൈ വേവ്സ്, വളരെ പൊക്കത്തിലുള്ള തിരമാലകൾ. ദാറ്റ് ഈസ് സുനാമി. ദേ ആർ കോൾഡ് സുനാമി വേവ്സ്. ഹൗ സുനാമി ഈസ് കോസ്ഡ് ഈസ് ബൈ എർത്ത് അണ്ടർ സീ. കടലിന്റെ കീഴെ എവിടെയെങ്കിലും എർത്ത് ഉണ്ടാകുമ്പോൾ പെട്ടെന്ന് വോൾക്കാനിക് എറപ്ഷൻ വന്ന് വലിയ വലിയ വേവ്സ് ഉണ്ടാകും. ഐ ടോൾഡ് ദാറ്റ് സുനാമി വേവ്സ് ക്യാൻ ഗോ അപ് ടു ഈവൻ 30 meters. ഒരു 10 നില കെട്ടിടത്തിന്റെ പൊക്കം വരെ സുനാമി വേവ്സ് പോവാം. ഇറ്റ്സ് പോസിബിൾ. 30 meters means roughly 100+ feet. അത്രയും പോകാം. It can even submerge buildings. You are right. So tsunami is an example of a crisis. അങ്ങനെയുള്ള ഏത് ഡിസാസ്റ്ററും, സുനാമി, ഫ്ലഡ്, a major train accident, these are all crises. Landslides. Okay, see the next slide. Next slide. What are the peculiarities of a crisis? First thing is low probability. In civil engineering, there is a subject what is called hydrology. Now, hydrology, we teach the students that once in a lifetime flood can come once in 99 years. 99 വർഷത്തിൽ ഒരിക്കൽ ഒരു മഹാപ്രളയം ഉണ്ടാകാം. This is what we teach them. And that is not taken into consideration for design, because to design for that, the design has to be excessive. അതുകൊണ്ട് അണക്കെട്ടുകളും മറ്റുമൊക്കെ ഡിസൈൻ ചെയ്യുമ്പോൾ ആ മഹാപ്രളയത്തെ പരിഗണിക്കാറില്ല. We take only normal rainfall. But you know that 2018 and 2019, we got that once in a lifetime flood. Before that, only 90 years back, we had that. Okay. So the probability of, we don't know when the next flood is going to happen. Similarly, we had a tsunami. How many years back? Last decade only. We don't expect a tsunami immediately, but it can happen also. And in India, that was the only tsunami which came so far. Of course, only in the Ramayana it is written, the sea will withdraw and water will withdraw. In reality, it never happened. Ramayana, it is discussed that when Sri Rama came near to the sea has withdrawn. But in tsunami, it really happened. So maybe people can say that that was the time when tsunami happened. But that is different. That's only an imagination. Most of the things in Ramayana are imagination. But some are very good imagination. Like that was the only text where an aeroplane was discussed. After that, an aeroplane was drawn only by Leonardo da Vinci. Leonardo da Vinci made the working plan of an aeroplane, though the Wright brothers made it only in the 20th century. But those were all real imaginations. Okay. Then another thing is the crisis will have very high impact. The death may be high, the danger may be high, the destruction may be high, and the reason will be unknown or ambiguous. And the effects also may be. We will never know. Say, when the tsunami came, we were not exactly sure where it is going to affect. It came up to even Alua. And you see that Aluva, Ernakulam, Alapura, these places were not on the path of tsunami, but its reflections came there. The tsunami went through the southern side in the Indian Ocean, but the reflections of the tsunami came to the Arabian Sea. That's why the Kerala coast was affected. So we are uncertain, and prediction also many times is difficult. But prediction up to an extent nowadays it's possible, but still it is ambiguous. See the next slide. You go through that list. Common features of a crisis. Just read that list. Then I'll ask questions. First feature of a crisis is it happens unexpectedly. You cannot predict it much in advance. Say, for example, when the tsunami came in Kerala, I told you once, I think I expected, luckily, I was supposed to travel that day, that night to Tirunelveli. Tirunelveli was affected by tsunami, and the railway track which goes through the sea coast was also affected. Many trees fell down. I luckily escaped because the auto rickshaw driver who had to pick me up slept. He didn't come in time. So it is quite unexpected. And decisions are required urgently because the government machinery, normally daytime only the machinery is active. Nighttime we cannot expect the government machinery to be active. But now in every state there is what is called a disaster management cell. In Tirunelveli also the cell is working. They work round the clock. If some immediate instructions have to be given, they give it. Those times it was not working. So when something happens at night, either the ministers have to be woken up or the chief secretary has to be woken up and informed that this has happened. But now that system is there. And the action time is very short. We don't get much time to act. For example, when the tsunami hit Kanyakumari, within 2 hours it hit the coast of Kerala. So we didn't have much time to react. And information has to be transmitted quickly, urgent demands. That nowadays it is possible because now everybody is using social media. Even if you are sleeping, the beeping sound of a WhatsApp or Facebook or something can wake you up. That is possible. Or, since mobile is very common now, a ringing sound of the mobile can also wake you up. So nowadays it's not that danger because information can be passed immediately. Then there is sense of loss of control. We feel we are helpless when something unexpected happens. I heard a person at Changanur saying that when the flood came, he was in the ground floor of the house and the water around was sweeping high and he felt helpless. Everything he could do at that time was take his mobile and run to the first floor. Nothing else he could do at that time. That can happen to anyone. From the first floor, with the available charge of the mobile, he could contact people and somehow he could be saved. Nothing else could be done. Then pressure builds over time. When a crisis happens, as every moment passes on, the crisis becomes higher and higher. It builds up. And then routine business becomes difficult. Routine business means our daily routines. We will have to keep away. And even our office going, class going, all these things will have to be kept away. And demands are made to identify someone to blame. Means at that time our personal politics and group politics work. For example, definitely the opposition will talk against the ruling party. The ruling party will talk against the opposition. The mother-in-law will speak against the daughter-in-law. The daughter-in-law will speak against the mother-in-law. This all will happen when a crisis happens. When a crisis happens, 50% of the people will do the business of blaming. They cannot control the decision. Even in your household, you see, when something goes wrong, there is a tendency for people to blame each other. They don't see whether they are the reason or somebody else is the reason. It's a human tendency. It happens in crisis. And then outsiders take an unaccustomed interest. That interest is not always genuine, I think. That interest is, with a specific interest. I still remember I met with a severe accident at Kottayam 4 years back. Immediately I was taken to the hospital by the police. And when I was on hospital, my purse was in my pocket. I was quite sensible. But then a person unknown to me was coming and telling me that, sir, your purse is in the pocket, please entrust with me. I'll take care of it. He is not known to me. What is his interest? I immediately understood. So luckily my driver was unhurt. So I called him and I told him, see, please keep my purse with you till I demand. Don't give to anyone else. Because that had a lot of cash, lot of credit cards, so many other documents were all in my purse at that time. See, his interest was something different. Why our PPT has gone? PPT is not visible. Try to bring it back. And another point, reputation suffers. Suppose, say, you are a government official. You are a government official in charge of some, say, I'll simply say, one of my classmates was a district collector at Kozhikode when a crisis came there, the Nipah. Jos was the collector there. So after the Nipah has went off, I just came to Palghat once and we met and we had a cup of tea. And at that time, he was saying that, when the Nipah came, he was in utmost danger because it's a factor of reputation. If the district administration is incapable of solving that issue, he will be the person to take the blame. So he couldn't sleep for many days. This can happen because, everyone wants to spoil the reputation of others. Then communication will be very difficult to manage. Very difficult to manage means if you are a high official, all of a sudden hundreds of calls will be coming to you. You don't know which to take and which not to take. So any official, many of you, whether it is it's an electronics engineer working in the BSNL or telecom systems or a computer engineer working in the IT mission, when some crisis takes place, you will be all controlling the situation and you will be in real trouble because you will not be able to, and moreover your mood also will change. When a crisis happens, you will not be in your normal mood. Your mood will be spoiled because you know that you are on pinpoint. Working system also. This will happen to you in your personal life also. Whenever, take for example, when I am traveling in a car, if some dangerous situation occurs and my driver has to handle it, I tell the driver, please wait for 5 minutes on the side and then only we will move. Why? Because all of a sudden their mindset will change, their brain working will change, and they will not be able to properly control their own system. This can happen. So this you also keep in mind whenever you are in some situation, all of a sudden, don't do anything else. Please wait. Make your breathing normal. Let your brain also will take some time to become normal. And whenever you face a crisis, this will happen. I think by practice only you can get accustomed to this. Whenever a personal tragedy happens also, you should not be put into crisis. I still remember when I met with an accident, both my legs were broken. They were sitting on the back side of the car. Immediately, I knew that both my legs are broken below the knee because I couldn't lift the legs. When the crowd came around, I instructed them specifically, please lift me up, taking care of both my legs because both my legs are broken below the knee. If you are careless, my legs will, the bones will come out. It will be very dangerous then to treat me. And they obeyed it and they were very much, helpful. They kept it such that my legs were kept in position because at that time I was having presence of mind. Though the accident happened, luckily my damage was below the knee. My brain or my body didn't have any other damage. I could manage that situation by giving instruction to the people there. So sometimes I know I could recover within seconds. Maybe some days it may take us minutes and hours to recover. Depends on your personality, your attitude and your attitude. It will take sometimes some seconds only, sometimes some minutes, sometimes some hours. Whatever it is, you know yourself. When a crisis happens, understand first how much time you take to recover. Then wait till then. Then give the instruction to people or tell people what is your real condition. That is very much necessary. See the next slide. What is crisis management? A crisis management is preventing a crisis from becoming a catastrophe. See the spelling of that word catastrophe. It is to be accepted as catastrophe, not as catastrophe. I heard many people accent it as catastrophe. It is catastrophe. What does it mean? Can anybody tell me what's a catastrophe? Revati, can you tell me what do you understand by a catastrophe? Revati,
Disaster.
can you tell me? Catastrophe, disaster, crisis, these are having very marginal differences. Disaster, it is very close to disaster. Catastrophic നമ്മൾ സാധാരണ പറയാറ് ഒരു മഹാവിപത്ത്. That is the word meaning of it. മഹാവിപത്ത്. Disaster എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ വിപത്ത്. Catastrophe means മഹാവിപത്ത്. Okay. So, say for example, in Bible it says the human beings will end at the time of the last prophet. The human beings will be ending on this earth. It's mentioned in Bible. That is called perhaps the doomsday, or it is called catastrophe. Ending of the humanity is a catastrophe. Okay, so that is the word meaning of catastrophe. Sometimes say the meteors are going to collide with the earth. We say it's a catastrophe. Or take another case that, of course, a pandemic. Pandemic is not a catastrophe, but if pandemic is killing millions of people, it's a catastrophe. See the difference between pandemic and catastrophe. A pandemic എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ എന്താ അർത്ഥം? What is the word meaning of pandemic? I told in one class what is the difference between disease, epidemic, and pandemic. What is the difference between these three? Nawaz Sharif. Nawaz, what is the difference between disease, epidemic, and pandemic? Now, Ushmala is going to tell. Ushmala, who is saying? Okay, the left hand. Yes. Nawaz, tell me. Nawaz, പറയൂ. Disease, epidemic, pandemic. ഇത് തമ്മിലുള്ള ഡിഫറൻസ് എന്താണ്?
ഡിസീസസ് പറഞ്ഞാൽ നോർമലായിട്ടുള്ള രോഗം, ഫീവർ അങ്ങനെ കാര്യങ്ങൾ.
എപ്പിഡമിക് എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ
പാൻഡമിക് പറഞ്ഞാൽ ചിലപ്പോൾ ഓരോ ക്രൈസിസ്, ഐ മീൻ ഇതുമായി കാര്യങ്ങളൊക്കെ വരുമ്പോൾ ഒരു പാൻഡമിക് കൺസിഡർ ചെയ്യുന്നു.
Definition correct ആയില്ലല്ലോ. That is not how I explained. You're coming closer, but correct definition ഇല്ല. Sahanas, can you tell me what is the difference between disease, epidemic, and pandemic? Sahanas പറയൂ. Sahanas, can you hear me? Yes. So what is the difference between disease, epidemic, and pandemic? Pandemic പറഞ്ഞ whole, what is that she has written? Pandemic പറഞ്ഞ whole world affect ചെയ്യും. No, I have got a request to all of you people. You write either in English or in Malayalam. Not mix up like this. It's a horrible language. Either it is Manglish or Inglam, whatever it is. But don't do that. Either you write in English or you write in Malayalam. Both are acceptable because you are using a language. But this you are spoiling your own language. Now, after writing like this for so many years, you will not be able to write English or Malayalam. Better you follow one. Okay. So, because you are all in the final year now, whenever you are sending, suppose some job, you are sending your CV and you are writing a statement like this, then they will not call you for interview. They feel that you are not careful about your language. Okay. GCR has written epidemic spread in a small area, and Chelsea has written pandemic is a world spread disease. Yes, both are right. Okay. Sahanas, next time you write, either you write in full English or full Malayalam. Okay, don't mix up things like this. Not only Sahanas, everybody. Now Chelsea and Jesse have written in English. That's good. Don't worry about whether English is good or bad. Never concern that. You know, I have studied in a Malayalam school. Till 10th standard, I was not knowing how to even speak a single statement in English. In our school, English was taught in Malayalam. I don't know whether you have got that experience. English was taught in Malayalam means our English teacher comes to class, reads the English line, and then explains in Malayalam. But after that, I went to a distant college. I was in the hostel there, and English was taught by British. See, it was a great stress for me, effort for me to listen to them and understand them. And more than half of our classmates were Anglo-Indians whose mother tongue was English. But I tried myself. I used to hear the All India Radio, British Broadcasting Corporation, American Broadcasting Corporation, and within 6 months I could catch up with them. So that is it. You can catch up with anybody in your communication skill, provided you decide. So don't think that you didn't have good English teaching, or you didn't have good primary or preliminary classes or something like that. No, your effort will compensate that. Why I'm telling this is many of the students have come and told me that their spoken skill is not good. If your spoken skill is not good, it is not somebody else's fault. It is your own fault. You listen to good speeches. Even nowadays, 1 hour I listen to people. In the morning, when I'm getting ready, I always listen to some good English speeches by the world-renowned people, either from edX or by Shashi Tharoor or Sadhguru or such people, and it gives you a lot of knowledge, and your language also in interview. We are not born with everything. We make up, and spoken skill is always an acquired skill. I do write in both the languages because I read. That is the point. So this is an advice to the final years, because your language decides where you reach. Even after a BTech degree, where you are going to reach will be decided by your communication skill, and in that skill, your language is very important. So don't keep it secondary. You take any 10 people. One among them who has got the best language will be the most successful. And I always like people having good language, spoken as well as written. For written language, you have to have a reading habit. For spoken language, obviously, listening habit is good. Will you all do what I have said? Listen to some good English speeches and read. Nowadays, of course, listening itself will give you a lot of knowledge also. On YouTube, there is a video on each and everything. If I want to, because after I starting my session on disaster management, I happen to see how many videos are there in the YouTube. Scores of videos on disaster management. And of course, when you get time, not only on disaster management, on every topic, you get scores of videos. Now, I have also a habit, whatever classes I'm taking, whatever speeches I'm delivering, I just record it and post on the YouTube. Around 10 to 20 have been already posted. Still more I'm going to post. Why? Anytime, anywhere, anybody can access it and go through it. So make this a habit for you also. Whenever you can do some creative things, you post it in the YouTube so that people can access it at any point of time. That is a social service. Okay. So crisis management is a methodology for solving crisis situations. Whenever a crisis situation affects, the actual crisis may not be what we expected. Maybe much different. Many times we feel that crisis is not for us, it is for someone else. When somebody is bitten by a snake, we say that, okay, he is bitten. even then we feel I will not be bitten. No, someday you may also be bitten. So that crisis can happen in your life. I've been driving vehicle for so many decades. Right, for more than 3 to 4 decades, I've been driving vehicle. But accident happened after all that when my driver was driving and not because of his mistake. So crisis can happen not by our own mistake, by some other's mistake, by some other accident. So how we handle the crisis is more important. That has to be, a stabilized method. See the next slide. Crisis management is very complex because of the reasons. First thing is, nobody knows when a crisis happens. If you know it, then you cannot say it's a crisis. In Mahabharata, there is an occasion. I don't know whether you heard it. All the Pandavas, the Panch Pandavas, they were near the Sarayu river. In their, 14 years, they had to stay in the forest, Vanavasa. In that period, once they were in they are staying close to the Sarayu river. And then the youngest, Sahadeva, went to the river to take water. Then he heard an anonymous sound, a Shariri, asking so many questions. One of the question was, what is the biggest wonder on this earth? He couldn't answer properly. He said the biggest wonder is that the nature here you see is so beautiful. And when he couldn't return, and immediately when he didn't answer, he fell down unconscious. Then came his elder brother, Nagula. He was also asked the same question. He couldn't answer. He fell unconscious. And at the end came Yudhishthira. Yudhishthira is the eldest of them all. The same question was asked to him. What is the biggest wonder on this earth? And then Yudhishthira told to that anonymous sound that we all know that one day we are going to die. And forgetting that, we are living happily. This is the biggest wonder on earth. This was Yudhishthira's reply. Inter alia, many other replies also he had to give. This is a big wonder. We all know one day we are going to die. But if a moment we think that we cannot live happily, okay, then obviously that anonymous voice came in front of him, and that was Yamadharma. Yamadharma is the god of death. Yamadharma is the father of Yudhishthira. Then Yamadharma said, I was testing your brothers and you have succeeded in it, and he gave the blessings and went away. Why I told this is, crisis is our companion. Crisis is our companion. We don't know when it happens. We don't know when it will afflict us. We don't know when we will succumb to it. Like our life, crisis is always with us. Once you are born, it is with us. So, but how to manage it is the most important thing. And any scene of crisis can be expected unprepared. But if you are prepared, it will be better. You can change it. Say, for example, you don't know how to handle the crisis of a gas cylinder burning. If you know how to take care of it, you can save a lot of people. I think many times the oil companies do give training how to handle a situation in case of a gas cylinder burning. If you are trained on it, you can take care of it. Many times this can happen. Then, you cannot know when the crisis will happen. I still remember when I was working at Trivandrum in a college, one of our final year students was the district champion in swimming and diving. Only son of two highly employed parents. When he was in the 8th semester one day, he told his parents that he has to go to college for some other work. Not regular working day. It was a holiday, but he said, I want to go to college, and he left the home. And along with his friends, he went to the Muvatupuzha, not Muvatupuzha, that river, Sampura, I forgot its name. Very close to Trivandrum. He went to that river I'll tell that river name. And when seeing the river, he told the friends that I am going to dive into it. Because his friends know that he is a very good diver and very good swimmer. He dived into it, but couldn't come up. After waiting for 5 minutes, all his friends made a huge hue and cry, and local people came. Those who were traveling by small boats and all, they came. They dived downstairs and they brought the dead body of the boy. Because the moment he dived inside, some bushes were there, some, long stretched bushes were there. It got wrapped onto his hands and legs. He couldn't come up. He's a good swimmer, district champion, good diver, but crisis has happened. What to do? I couldn't even withstand the condition of the parents. Only son, all parents. See, this can happen. So crisis we cannot predict. Crisis can happen to anyone. So only thing is we have to anticipate some crisis in all action. That comes normally with the age. When you get more and more aged, you will have more and more care in things. Maybe the young generation cannot accept that. But always don't be afraid of crisis. You take some precaution. That's all. Take the precaution, and then, for example, when walking through a dense forest, especially if it is a night, you should have a torch with you because you don't know where the snake is. As you know, snake will not normally bite. But if you put your legs over it, it will definitely bite. So crisis situation we can try to avoid. And of course, our knowledge about the crisis and emergency will help us a lot. That is why such a paper you are learning. Whenever some crisis is coming, how to take care of it. Okay. So by learning something, you can better your performance. You know that now you have been trained a lot about COVID. You have to put the mask, how to wear the mask. I think in the COVID period, the biggest lesson I learned was how to wash the hands properly. We were casually washing the hands, but there was a lot of videos on how to wash your hands properly. So it comes as a crisis management step, but it is required. Okay. Now let us see the next slide. And the next slide is not coming. What for we do crisis management? Many of the crises can be prevented. Many of the crises and emergencies can be prevented. Take for example, you are driving at a speed of 100 plus kilometer per hour. Even a small distraction can end up in a huge danger. But if you are traveling at a speed of 60 to 80, maybe 60, many such emergencies can be avoided because when the speed of the vehicle is less, the braking will be sudden. The distance of braking, the braking distance will be less. So many dangers can be avoided. Okay. I still remember a case when I was driving myself, some 2-3 decades back. I was going through a colony, the railway colony, very close to my house. One child and one father was walking in front. They were going in the same way of the vehicle. That child was holding the hand of the father and both were walking. When I was only 10 meters away, all of a sudden, that child broke from the father and came in front of my vehicle. Luckily, I could brake. At that time, I was younger, my muscles were more powerful. I could brake such that 1 foot before the child, I stopped. That parent was coming, running. Luckily, that child was saved without any hurt. He thanked me, but that is not enough. Why it so happened? Because that child was holding onto the parent's hand. The parent was holding onto the child's hand, it would have never happened. All of you are going to have children in future. Keep in mind, when you are going through a busy street, this street was not even busy. Mine was the only vehicle coming in that. But the child was holding the parent's hand. Anytime it could free and go away. So this is a point in crisis management. If you are taking a child for walking, always make sure that you are holding the child. the child is not holding you. Okay, one simple example. Then the second thing is, by doing crisis management, you can have survival. This case alone, which case I have told, and I was seeing that that person was whose child just jumped in front of my car. That person was not known to me for a long time, a very good individual. But what to do? If my car couldn't stop within that, that child would have been definitely killed. It can happen. So survival, individual survival is very important. Then successful outcomes. Many times successful outcomes also have to be there, because your a bit of care for yourself and others can make a lot of successful events. You can take care. One simple example I'm saying. We were going then we had some, we were going to Silent Valley area. Silent Valley has got a peculiar creature called leech. Leech, L-E-A-C-H, leech. Anybody knows what is this leech? Leechന്റെ അർത്ഥം ആർക്കെങ്കിലും അറിയാവോ? അട്ടപ്പാടിയിലുള്ള സൈലന്റ് വാലിയിലൊക്കെ ഉള്ള ഒരു ജീവിയാണ് leech. Rifas, can you tell me what is this leech? L-E-A-C-H, leech. Rifas. Rifas is here or not?
Hello.
Leech എന്ന് കേട്ടിട്ടുണ്ടോ? Leech, L-E-A-C-H. ഇല്ല.
Don't know, sir.
അട്ടപ്പാടിയുടെ പേര് തന്നെ വന്നത് ഈ ജീവിയിൽ നിന്നാണ്. ഏതാ ജീവി?
സാർ അട്ട.
അദ്ദേഹം ഹോസ്പിറ്റലിൽ നിന്ന് വന്നോ? തിരിച്ചു വന്നോ?
ഇല്ല സർ, ഹോസ്പിറ്റലിലാണ്, ഒബ്സർവേഷൻ.
ഓക്കെ. അട്ട രണ്ട് തരത്തിലുണ്ട്. There are two types of atta. One is called the millipede and the other is called leech. Millipede എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ നമ്മുടെ വീട്ടിലൊക്കെ വരുന്ന അട്ട. Millipede means 1000 legs. 1000 legs ഒന്നും അതിനില്ല. It has got a lot of legs. That is why it is called milli. Milli means 1000. That is why it is called millipede. M-I-L-L-I-P-E-D. Another type of atta is called leech. L-E-A-C-H. അട്ടപ്പാടിയിൽ വളരെ അധികമുള്ള ഒരു ജീവിയാണ് ഈ അട്ട. ഇറ്റ്സ് എ സ്മോൾ ഓർഗാനിസം. ഒരു 1 ഇഞ്ചിനടുത്തൊക്കെ നീളേ ഉണ്ടാവുള്ളൂ. ഒരു നൂല് പോലെ കനത്തി കിടക്കും. But it has got a peculiar quality. Even from a distance of 30 feet, 10 മീറ്റർ അകലത്തിൽ നിന്ന് ബ്ലഡ് വെയിൻസിനെ ഐഡന്റിഫൈ ചെയ്യാനുള്ള കപ്പാസിറ്റി അതിനുണ്ട്. 10 മീറ്റർ അകലത്തിൽ നിന്ന്. ആൻഡ് ഇമ്മീഡിയറ്റ്ലി അത് ഹൈഡ്ര പോലെ ഇങ്ങനെ കുത്തി നിൽക്കും മണ്ണിൽ. യു ഹാവ് സീൻ ഹൈഡ്ര വളഞ്ഞു കുത്തി നിൽക്കുന്നത്. എന്നിട്ട് ഒരൊറ്റ ചാട്ടം ചാടും. ഇറ്റ് ക്യാൻ റീച്ച് അപ് ടു 10 meters. സി, വെരി സ്മോൾ ഓർഗാനിസം. 10 മീറ്റർ വരെ ദൂരത്തിലേക്ക് ചാടി കൃത്യമായിട്ട് ഒരാളുടെ ദേഹത്ത് വന്ന് രക്തം ഓടുന്ന ഞരമ്പില് ആങ്കർ ചെയ്യാനുള്ള കപ്പാസിറ്റി ജീവിക്കുന്നുണ്ട്. വെരി ഡേഞ്ചറസ് ഓർഗാനിസം. അങ്ങനെ നമ്മുടെ കാലിലോ കയ്യിലോ ഒക്കെ വീഴുമ്പോൾ ചിലപ്പോൾ നമ്മൾ അറിയുക തന്നെയില്ല, അത്ര സോഫ്റ്റ് ലാൻഡിംഗ് ആണ്. ആൻഡ് ഇറ്റ് വിൽ സ്റ്റാർട്ട് സക്കിംഗ് ദ ബ്ലഡ് കുടിച്ച് അത് ഭയങ്കര സൈസാവും, ഒരു ബലൂൺ പോലെ. അങ്ങനെ ആയി കഴിയുമ്പോൾ വെയിറ്റ് നമുക്കറിയാം, അപ്പോഴേ നമ്മൾ അറിയുള്ളൂ. ഈവൻ ദെൻ ഇറ്റ് കനോട്ട് ലീവ് ബൈ ഇറ്റ് സെൽഫ്. അതിന്റെ കൊമ്പ് അങ്ങനെയാണ്, അതിന് പിടിച്ചു കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ പിന്നെ വിട്ടുപോകാൻ പറ്റില്ല. അപ്പോൾ പെട്ടെന്ന് നമുക്ക് കയ്യിൽ ഉപ്പ് അല്ലെങ്കിൽ പുകയിലപ്പൊടി ഇത് ഏതെങ്കിലും ഉണ്ടെങ്കിൽ അത് ഇട്ട് കൊടുത്താൽ മതി. അതുകൊണ്ട് അട്ടപ്പാടിയിലേക്ക് പോകുന്നവർ ഒന്നിൽ കയ്യിൽ ഉപ്പ് അല്ലെങ്കിൽ പുകയില പൊടിച്ചതുമായിട്ടേ പോകാറുള്ളൂ. I was having, once we were going to Attapadi, and all of a sudden I felt something on my leg. So I was expecting that this leech will catch me. And I was seeing that that leech is only starting to take the blood. All of a sudden, I put some salt powder വേണം. And immediately it relaxed. അത് വോമിറ്റ് ചെയ്യും, കുടിച്ച രക്തം അത് വോമിറ്റ് ചെയ്യും സോൾട്ട് ഇട്ട് കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ. And then I cautioned everybody else, please take care. Put some salt on your feet and all. But even then it caught 2 people. So this is some precaution which we can take for some precaution which you can take for some emergency, and this will be a successful outcome. That's what I am saying. So all the people seeing this, and one more thing is, some people have got high allergy to this leech. ഞാൻ ഹൈലി അലർജിക് ആണ്. അന്ന് തന്നെ അട്ട കൊത്തിയ പാട് 10-15 വർഷം എടുത്തു എൻ്റെ കാലിൽ നിന്ന് പോകാൻ. സോ Some people are like this. So if you are going to some hilly area, so next time when I went to Parambikulam, I was so careful to have some gumboot. Gumboot ആകുമ്പോൾ മുട്ട് വരെ അതിന് പിടിക്കാൻ പറ്റില്ല. Normally it catches you at the feet level. കാരണം അതിന് ചാടി വീഴാൻ എളുപ്പം. നമ്മുടെ ഫീറ്റിലേക്ക് വീണ് കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ പെട്ടെന്ന് അറിയില്ല. കയ്യിലൊക്കെ അതിന് പൊക്കത്തിൽ ചാടാൻ പറ്റില്ല. Horizontally it projects. ഒരു പ്രൊജക്ടൈൽ പോലെയാണ് ചാടുന്നത്. So whenever you go to forest area, be careful. Better to wear a gumboot and also carry with you some salt powder or some tobacco powder. Okay, one example. See the next slide. How you can be successful in crisis management. This crisis management occurs in organizations also. See, for example, now the engineering colleges in Kerala are in a crisis. You see, last year around out of the 142 colleges, only around 40 colleges got more than 50% admission. Why? Because of the COVID. People are not having money. And of course, even those who qualified cannot go elsewhere for a job. Everybody has been caught in the native place. They cannot go abroad. Jobs are there, but they cannot catch it. First thing. Second is, so many jobs, all of a sudden, people became jobless. Now, it will take 6 more months to come to normal. So the job market got immediately dull. The money market got immediately dull. And many people didn't join for any course. Not only engineering, most of the courses, seats have been lying vacant. So the colleges have been put into a crisis. Say how to overtake that crisis. Many colleges have reduced the fees. Some colleges reduced their admission conditions. Some colleges are not paying their teachers, not ours. We are paying our teachers full. Some colleges are not paying their teachers. Some colleges, the students are not taken care of. All these things are having, but a crisis management in this situation. I found myself that better perform in this period. That is a policy we have adopted in assets. I see to that all the teachers are working best, all the teachers are paid well, all the students are attending the sessions, we monitor the attendance. So in times of crisis like this, it is easy for you to perform because you have got, others are in crisis, means it's the best time for you to perform. So now students also keep in mind, asset students, now if you come up with good performance, you will be absorbed immediately after your degree, because now immediately after this COVID season is over, all the industries will be opening up, all the careers will be opening up, and you should have a competitive edge over the others. So that is why I have beefed up the training and placement activities also, because your marks alone cannot bring you a job. You should be able to communicate, to interact with people. So we want a lot of training also to go into you. And of course, I hope that it is going on. If there is any deficiency in the things which we are going on, any student can send me a message in WhatsApp. What is the deficiency you identify? I'll appreciate it. I always appreciate the good suggestions by students. If you feel that there is any deficiency in our system, either in the academic system or in the training and placement system or extracurricular system, you can send me a message. We'll take care of. You can send me a personalized message, because some other people may be hurt by sending in groups. But I am never hurt. I always accept positive criticism, because positive criticism only can make our system better. Especially in crisis, we have to be competitive. Okay, you also have to be competitive. Being competitive doesn't mean getting marks alone. Being competitive means you are always active. You are doing something. You are reading something. You are learning something. You are performing something. That's also very important. See the next slide. How you can plan for the crisis? The first thing is assess the risk. Say when the COVID came, most of the governments were putting lockdown. Why? They understood that the risk is very high. Even now, I feel another lockdown may come. I'm not sure. If that lockdown comes, schools and colleges will be the first affected. Why? The risk is more in schools and colleges. In a room, 30 to 60 people are sitting in a classroom. So the risk is very high in schools and colleges. So if at all a lockdown comes again, the first lockdown will be the schools and colleges. I know the students will be very happy with lockdown because staying at home, you can learn and you don't have to travel. You have got your parents attending to you, all these things. Let me ask a simple question. I just want to see your response. In this lockdown period, is there anyone who is unhappy staying at home? Because otherwise, I'll assume that you're all happy. If anybody staying at home is unhappy, assume that it's a survey. Now 50 people are here. I just want to see whether any of you are unhappy staying at home doing online class. Anybody? Otherwise, I'll assume that all of you are happy with online classes. You can put in the chat box. If anybody is unhappy staying at home with online classes, this is a check for me. Because now Saturday also we have made classes online as per the government order. So 6 days you are having online classes. Anybody? You're unhappy with online classes? So I presume that all the 50 people, 50 is including me, are happy with the online system. Hope so. If not, you can post anytime in the chat box. Then the next point is crisis planning. You have to plan whenever a crisis is coming. Let me ask a question to you. That suppose one more lockdown is going to come. It's a crisis. How are you going to plan? Let us assume one more lockdown is going to come. You cannot go anywhere. You have to stay at home. Okay. I still remember on March 23rd, when the last lockdown was declared, I was at Coimbatore with my daughter. The TV news say that from midnight, 12 o'clock, you cannot travel even interstate. So news came around the 8 or 9 only, I think, in the evening. And my driver was also not there. So all of a sudden, I had to pack up. By 9 o'clock, I packed up, and by 10, I reached Ahilya campus. And by before 12, I reached my home because next day onwards, travel is not permitted. So it's a crisis. I planned it well. Otherwise, I would have been locked down in Coimbatore for so many months. They permitted only after 3-4 months to travel to Kerala. Now, one more lockdown is going to come. How you are going to plan? Let me see. Mariha is, you are free now? One more lockdown is going to come. How you are
Yes,
going to
sir.
plan? ഒരു ലോക്ക്ഡൌൺ കൂടെ വരാൻ പോകുന്നു വെച്ചോളൂ. എന്താ പ്ലാൻ ചെയ്യുക? What is the crisis planning you will do? അവിടെ നിന്ന് പറയാൻ പറ്റുന്ന കണ്ടീഷൻ ആണോ? ഇല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഐ ലാസ്റ്റ് സംബഡി എൽസ്. ഹോസ്പിറ്റലിൽ നിന്ന് സംസാരിക്കാൻ പറ്റുമോ?
സർ കുഴപ്പമില്ല.
One more lockdown. Let's assume. I don't know whether it is going to come or not. We can expect. Because today the ministers' meeting is being held by the Prime Minister. Assume that one more lockdown is going to come. What are the precautions that you will do?
നത്തിങ് സർ. ഒരു മെയിൻ ലോക്ക്ഡൌൺ നമ്മൾ നേരിട്ടതാണല്ലോ.
So you don't want to plan for any lockdown?
എന്ത് സർ?
ഇനി ഒരു ലോക്ക്ഡൌൺ കൂടെ വരികയാണെങ്കിൽ ഒരു പ്ലാനിങ് ആവശ്യമില്ല.
നോ സർ.
But I think that is not fully correct. Let me ask somebody else. വീട്ടിലെ കാര്യങ്ങളൊക്കെ നോക്കുന്ന വേറെ ആരെങ്കിലും ഉണ്ടോ എന്ന് നോക്കട്ടെ. Sonia, what things you will do? Sonia പറയൂ, എന്തൊക്കെ ചെയ്യും? What all things? Sonia is very careful about another lockdown. What things you will do? പറയൂ. സോണിയ ഇപ്പോൾ ഒരു മെസ്സേജ് കണ്ടു. മെസ്സേജിൽ പറയുന്ന അത്യാവശ്യമുള്ള സാധനങ്ങളൊക്കെ നീഡഡ് തിങ്സ് ഒക്കെ വാങ്ങി വയ്ക്കും. Right. Then vegetables, medicines, etc. Then that's all.
സർ ഒരു ലോക്ക്ഡൌൺ വന്നാലും നമുക്ക് നീഡഡ് തിങ്സ് അത് പ്രൊവൈഡ് ചെയ്യാൻ ഗവൺമെന്റ് ഉണ്ടല്ലോ. പിന്നെ നമ്മ ഒരുപാട് ബൾക്കായിട്ട് സാധനങ്ങൾ വാങ്ങിച്ചു വെക്കുന്നതിൽ എനിക്ക് യോജിപ്പില്ല.
So that means after one lockdown you are so confident to face another lockdown.
Yes sir.
But ചിലപ്പോൾ കുറച്ച് ദിവസത്തേക്ക് ലോക്ക്ഡൌൺ ഡിഫക്റ്റ് വരും. When the first lockdown came, we had that difficulty. 3-4 days even provisions were not available. Those houses which are not having rice and vegetables were in trouble for 3-4 days. It became normal. It has happened. So what Sonia says is right. At least ഒരാഴ്ചത്തേക്കെങ്കിലും വേണ്ട സർവൈവ് ചെയ്യാൻ we have to be prepared for. Okay, at least 3-4 days. Okay, then when it is a big system, government ആണെങ്കിലോ ഗവൺമെന്റ് ആണ് ഇത് ചെയ്യേണ്ടതെങ്കിൽ they have to immediately form what is called a crisis management team. Yes, what Sonia says is right. എല്ലാം എപ്പോഴും കിട്ടുമെന്ന് വിചാരിക്കാൻ പാടില്ല. You are right, Sonia. I
ഇല്ല സർ,
accept.
നമ്മുടെ ഇവിടെന്ന് വെച്ചാൽ അങ്ങനെ ഒരു പ്രോബ്ലം ഇതുവരെ ഫേസ് ചെയ്തിട്ടില്ല ഞങ്ങളുടെ ഏരിയയില്.
അത് ആ ഏരിയയുടെ പ്രത്യേകതയാണ്. Here we
അതെ
are
അതെ
facing. പാലക്കാടൊക്കെ പ്രോബ്ലം ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു. What
ആ
Sonia says is right. We cannot expect everything to be available immediately. For example, 1 week, even I had to manage with the vegetables at home. ചക്കയും മാങ്ങയൊക്കെ കൊണ്ട് ഒരാഴ്ച കഴിയേണ്ടി വന്നു എനിക്ക്. We had such problem because the transport services, provision stops were all closed immediately. Okay, it can happen. So better to take some. But if it is a government, what the government has to do, suppose one more lockdown is expected, the government has to have a lot of logistics, provisions, vegetables, eatables, oil, petrol, all these things have to be stocked enough, and also the transport system has to be well arranged so that the people are not put into trouble. And then a crisis management group has to be there, an organization chart should be there for that, plans should be published, and people should know how you are going to handle. ഞാനൊരു ക്ലാസ്സിലാണല്ലോ, എന്താ ഞാനൊരു ക്ലാസ്സിലാണ്. I had an emergency call, that's why I had to attend. So a government has to have a drill. What do you mean by a drill? Government always have a drill for crisis management. Drill means rehearsal. Say for example, when the flood is coming, the flood rescue operations, they will have drill. You would have heard that when a VIP is coming, say American president is coming to Tirunelveli, the security forces will have a drill how to handle any crisis if at all it happens. There is a very famous film, English film, The Day of the Jackal, which depicts the assassination of the French chief. There you can see so many drills being taken up. Even now, when say for example, Prime Minister is coming. Last week, Prime Minister was here at Palakkad. Before he came, they conducted mock drill. How when the Prime Minister comes, if at all some danger happens or if at all some security problems are there, how to take care of it. So these are all part of the crisis management. See the next slide. What are the preparations? We have to prepare because crisis and emergency, if you are mentally prepared, we can handle easily. Say for example, if you know what to do when a snake bite is happening, you can be more comfortably handling that situation. But if you don't know that, it will be very dangerous. Maybe the mortality rate may be higher if you don't know. Another thing is, planning requires that crisis can occur at any time. There is no specific time. Say an earthquake, when it will occur. Earthquake will not give advance warning. Sometimes it can give warning. Take for example, when the cat in your house is mourning for a long time. Mourning means crying for a long time. You can expect some natural disasters. Why? Because when some natural disasters like earthquake or storms are happening, some peculiar frequency sound comes in the atmosphere, and those sounds will be mostly less than 20 hertz. Below 20 hertz, our human ears cannot sense it, but the rats can sense it, and the rats and the cats also can sense it. So they will make some unseen behavior. They will run amok, plus they will make some sounds, not common sounds. So we can assume that there is going to be some danger. So in Japan, there is a system. There are people who keep rats and cats inside home to see their behavior. by seeing their behavior pattern, they predict where a tsunami is going to come, or an earthquake is going to come, or a storm is going to come. Immediately they adjust like that. They know how to observe the animals and learn it. But in India, that system is not there. They are trained people are there. Okay, so this planning can be done by observations, and 9 out of 10 crises occur when you are unaware or asleep. See, most of the earthquakes occur in the early morning. Why? The early morning when the temperature is lowest. The continental drift is more possible because the plates, the tectonic plates will shrink in the early morning. That is why most of the earthquakes do occur in the early morning. Similarly, you know that most of the storms will occur in the afternoons. Why? Have you observed this? You have been staying in this earth for nearly 2 decades. Most of the earthquakes will occur in the early morning, and most of the storms will occur in the evenings. Any reason storm occur in the evening? Because the variation of the atmospheric temperature in the afternoons are very high. That is why the storms do occur late in the evening. You also see whenever in Palghat, most of the heavy rains we expect only in the evenings, not in the early mornings. Only in the rainy season you will have rains in the morning. Otherwise, a cloud burst or a storm will come only in the evening. So see the next slide. So I think with this slide we will stop today's discussion. This is what are the pre-crisis preparations we have to do at the higher level, means at the government level. At the government level, the first thing is you should fix the responsibility. Fix the responsibility means people should know whom to do what. That is one difficulty in crisis. People run here and there, but they don't know what to do. They are not sure who should do, why should do, how should do, like that. So if they are interested, say fixing the responsibility is very important in a crisis situation. And you know that say something goes wrong, who will take care of it? Everybody should know. That is the first thing. Second thing is, if a crisis has already started making laws, then definitely how to reduce the loss has to be a point. And one more thing is, if already one crisis was there earlier, people will know how to do the second time. So now twice the flood was there. Now why Mariha told a lockdown is not a problem? Because we have undergone a lockdown and she feels that she will get essential things. But the people in metro cities like Chennai or Bangalore or Mumbai who have undergone a lockdown are afraid by listening to a lockdown. Because I have my son-in-law now back from Delhi. You are saying that at the lockdown period, they are put into huge trouble. They cannot get anything. They cannot even come out. They were forced to take whatever was at home. Maybe we haven't felt it because in rural area it may not be felt. But in places like Delhi, it is very important. So it is very easy to underestimate the damage a crisis can do and cause if we can have. It all happened in the first time. So second time, you should not underestimate. You should really estimate what can happen. So crisis becomes a crisis provided we are unable to tackle it. When you can tackle a crisis doesn't become a crisis. It becomes a routine affair. That is why earthquake is not a problem for the Japanese. Why? They are seeing earthquake every day. Most of 99% of their buildings are made to withstand the earthquake. So they don't have any fear of their house collapsing. And they know how to behave. Whenever an earthquake is coming, they all assemble in the open land. They chit-chat themselves and they all have open lands near their houses. Whereas in Kerala, maybe in Ahilya, we have got an open land everywhere. But in town, if you go, there is no open land. If an earthquake is coming, people have no place to escape to open land. So where earthquake is expected, we should have open land. It's a planning. So these are all things by which we can take care of the crisis. Some more portion this is remaining, we'll see in the next class, and the remaining things in the next slide also we'll be seeing. Any questions you want to ask? It is almost time now, 12:30. Any question you want to ask? You can ask either oral or on chat box. Otherwise, we'll close it down. And one more thing I request to you. We have got 50 people right now, only 2-3 are absent. The students who have been listening to my class so far, now the third session is over. please send me SMS or WhatsApp a message. What are the changes or suggestions you would like to see in my class? Because I've been taking in a usual routine. Whether you want to see some changes, whether I have to be slower or faster, or my discussions have to have different orientation, or my way of approaching the subject has to be different, I appreciate it, and I'll all be happy. It can be negative or positive. Send to me a message saying what are the corrections or what are the changes I have to make. So thank you very much. We'll call it a day.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.